Gary C. Johnson is a personal injury attorney practicing in Pikeville, Hazard, and Central Kentucky. You can reach him at 1-800-337-4002. Life is a journey, and everyone deserves all the happiness that this life has to offer. That's why attorney Gary C. Johnson created a weekly radio program almost 20 years ago to look at ways that we can improve our relationships, our health, and most important, our frame of mind. You know, by having the right information, our choices can be easier, and so can our happiness. Welcome to this edition of Simply Life with Gary C. Johnson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into Simply Life. I'm Keith Casebolt and my dear friend, Gary C. Johnson.
Wonderful, extra wonderful to be here.
Yes, it is. And every time you say that, I now realize the true meaning of it.
You know, we talk a lot about happiness and things on the program, and today we're going to talk a lot about some about criticism,
Which is something that can rob you of your happiness.
But last week, I think it was, that we talked about that everyone has something that they can do better than 10,000 other people.
Isn't that amazing?
Something special about them.
Yeah.
And my friend Sandy Ramsey told me that she said, Gary, wouldn't it be wonderful if each person would tell one other person that they have something special about them that they have recognized, and each person then pass it on, that it was really spread out into the world and would make maybe the world a better place.
So kind of like going viral, passing it forward,
Yeah,
that you stop and tell somebody, I have noticed something about you that is unique.
That is unique and special. And
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And then ask them if they would pass that on to someone else. So, Sandy, it was a great idea, and I've used it.
You know, you and I, we were doing a television program, and you were talking about this, and during the break, you asked the guy running the controls, our friend Ronnie, I'm sure you can do something unique. And he said, nah, not really. And I said, Ronnie, don't you make these homemade fishing flies? Oh, yeah, but there's nothing to it. All you got to do is do this. And you and I we started laughing, and Gary told Ronnie, said, Keith and I would probably get a hook stuck in our neck. We couldn't even fish, let alone make a fishing fly, and yet you can do this, and you just think it's no big deal.
With all the skill and dexterity in the world.
Sells them across the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People want to buy them, and he's like, oh, it's no big deal. I mean.
When you have that special talent, you take it for granted and you assume everyone else has it.
Or that everyone else can do it. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, only to find out you're wrong.
And remember the times that I was said that on the self-help and the things that we talk about, if you go to the Proverbs in the Bible, you can find it.
Yes.
I got to looking just out of curiosity the other day, and I picked up the Bible and I said, I'm going to see if I'm right on that. And I ran across two, and I wrote them down, and I'm going to share them with you.
All right.
A merry heart does good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. Proverbs 17:22.
Wow. Confirmation right there of everything you've been talking about.
The next one, I wrote this one down too. The spirit of a man will endure sickness, but who can bear a wounded spirit? Proverbs 18:14.
Everything that you've been saying.
Right there. Right there in the Bible, folks.
You know, one time I've got a bookshelf here in our studio that Gary and I are recording in, and all of these self-help books and the gurus that are behind us, Gary looked up at it one day and he said, you know, Keith, every book you got on that shelf all comes from Proverbs.
It does. You'll find it in there. And I just happened to decide, well, I'm going to look and see, refresh that, and those two just jumped out at me, so I thought I'd share them with my friends.
It is the truth that happiness will make you healthy.
And it's the best medicine of all.
And it was startling to me on one of the television programs that you read that actually, physically, you can die from a broken heart.
A broken spirit may not mend, whereas a broken bone will.
So you think about the words that you use.
Mm-hmm.
Are you killing somebody with words and breaking their spirit, or are you uplifting them and improving their health and their life?
Let's hope my friends are uplifting them.
Yeah.
So let's talk about criticism.
Oh, the bad word.
And I went back to the old Dale Carnegie book, which I keep going back to that over the years to get a refresher. Now, this is what Dale Carnegie has to say about the matter. And he starts it off, remember that no one ever kicks a dead dog.
Isn't that a unique title?
Okay. And I'm going to start reading now. An event occurred in 1929 that created a national sensation in educational circles. Learned men from all over America rushed to Chicago to witness the affair. A few years earlier, a young man by the name of Robert Hutchins had worked his way through Yale, acting as a waiter, a lumberjack, a tutor, and a clothesline salesman. Now, only 8 years later, he was being inaugurated as president of the fourth richest university in America, the University of Chicago. His age, 30.
Wow.
Incredible. The older educators shook their heads. Criticism came roaring down upon this boy wonder like a rock slide. He was this and he was that, too young, too inexperienced. His educational ideas were cockeyed. Even the newspapers joined in the attack. The day he was inaugurated, a friend said to the father of Robert Maynard Hutchins, I was shocked this morning to read that newspaper editorials denouncing your son. Yes, the elder Hutchinson replied. It was severe, but remember that no one ever kicks a dead dog. Yes, and the most important dog is the more satisfaction people get in kicking him. The Prince of Wales, who later became Edward VIII, had that brought home to him in the seat of his pants. He was attending Dartmouth College in Devonshire at the time, a college that corresponds to our Naval Academy in Annapolis. The prince was about, got to get this page turned.
It's a sticky one.
I've actually wore this book out. Was about to turn 14. One day, one of the naval officers found him crying and asked him what was wrong. He refused to tell at first, but finally admitted the truth. He was being kicked by the naval cadets. The commodore of the college summoned the boys and explained to them that the prince had not complained, but he wanted to find out why the prince had been singled out for this rough treatment. After much hemming and hawing and toe-scraping, the cadets finally confessed that when they themselves become commanders and captains in the king's navy, they wanted to be able to say that they had kicked the king.
It was bragging rights for them.
Yeah. So when you're kicked and criticized, remember that is often done because it gives the kicker a sense of importance. It often means that you are accomplishing something and are worthy of the attention. Many people get a sense of savage satisfaction out of denouncing those who are better educated than they or are more successful. For example, while I was writing this chapter, I received a letter from a woman denouncing General William Booth, founder of the Salvation Army. I had given a laudatory broadcast about General Booth, so this woman wrote me, saying that General Booth had stolen $8 million of the money he had collected to help poor people. The charge, of course, was absurd, but this woman wasn't looking for truth. She was seeking the mean-spirited gratification that she got from tearing down someone far above her. I threw her bitter letter into the wastebasket and thanked Almighty God that I wasn't married to her. Her letter didn't tell me anything at all about General Booth, but it did tell me a lot about her. Vulgar people take huge delight in the faults and follies of great men.
Wow. Gary, those examples and that couple of chapters that you read from says so much.
Yeah.
So first of all, whenever you're being criticized, it is actually a compliment.
Because they're trying to tear you down to their level.
Because you are achieving something, you are doing something, you have won friends, and so they are jealous. It's pure jealousy.
So even on a small scale,
yeah,
if someone is criticizing you, take it as a compliment.
Because they want what you have.
And that's right. They don't have what you've got, therefore they have to criticize you.
So they have to tear you down in order to build themselves up.
In their feeble mind, they're building themselves up, when in reality, they're only tearing themselves down
Now,
even further.
Another line in there that really came out at me from Dale Carnegie is he said, the letter the lady wrote told me nothing about the general, but it told me everything about the lady who wrote it. It was a direct reflection of the woman who wrote the letter, her criticism, her jealousy, and everything, and he discarded the letter into the waste paper basket. Mm-hmm. That's all he needed to know.
And thank God he wasn't married to her.
Yes, and thank God I'm not married to her.
I'll read you a little more about what he says about this in the same vein.
I think this is great.
One hardly thinks of the president of Yale as a vulgar man. Yet a former president of Yale, Timothy Dwight, apparently took huge delight in announcing a man who was running for president of the United States. The president of Yale warned that if this man were elected president, we may see our wives and daughters the victim of legal prostitution, soberly dishonored, speciously polluted, the outcasts of delicacy and virtue, the loathing of God and man. Sounds almost like a denunciation of Hitler, doesn't it? But it wasn't. It was a denunciation of Thomas Jefferson. Which Thomas Jefferson? Surely not the immortal Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, the patron saint of democracy. Yes, verily, that was the man. What American do you suppose was announced as a hypocrite, an imposter, and as little better than a murderer? A newspaper cartoon depicted him on the guillotine with a big knife ready to cut off his head. Crowds jeered at him and hissed at him as he rode through the streets. Who was this? George Washington.
Father of our country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so now as you're reading this, I'm thinking about what you always try to tell us. Time will tell. Is it good or is it bad? But here the criticism came out of two people, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and obviously they were wrong.
You know, just like I've said in the past, that unsolicited advice is camouflage criticism.
Yes.
Dale Carnegie says, remember that unjust criticism is often a disguised compliment.
You know what? That's got to uplift our friends, any of our friends who have had unjust criticism thrown their way and wondered why. Now they've got to realize it was because it's a compliment. You're doing something. You're gaining attention. You're gaining friendship. You're making a difference in the world, and whoever is criticizing you is trying to tear you down in order to build themselves up. It is an amazing way to look at things.
Everything almost in life is like a judo.
Well, this is the judo law, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
To perfection?
The thing about it is we live our lives to the best we can. And to understand and not be bitter and envious and jealous, it's tough, because those are emotions that want to take over. And they'll grab you by the rear and drag you down into the swamp if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to explain to my friends is beware of those emotions. Emotions will kill you. They will cause you to lose promotions. They will cause you to lose jobs. They will get you in trouble. They will get you in fights. Emotions are dangerous.
Cost you a lot of money.
It costs you a fortune, especially anger.
You know, I was thinking when I first met you, I think you asked me one day, Keith, how many enemies do you have? And I started counting them off on my hand, and I went past 5, and I got to 6 or 7. And you said, I don't have any. And I said, Gary, how could you not have any enemies? And you explained it to me, that it was a waste of time, and that if you had anybody that was an enemy, you didn't know it or you'd already forgot it. Quickly, I realized what you were saying, and I am so happy today to say, I don't have any enemies.
I was talking to a person the other day running for political office, and they said something about, well, I wonder if I'll ever be able to get back at what somebody was saying and trying to do to them. I said, why in the world would you do that? He said, because they're doing this to me. I said, what's that got to do with you changing your course of life? And I said to him, remember the old Chinese proverb, he who seeks revenge should take a shovel to dig 2 graves.
Now, it's funny that you are saying this conversation because I was listening to an interview of a famous comedian who was telling what kids did to him in high school. And the interviewer said, now that you're famous, do you want to get back at them? And he said, did you ever watch the Bugs Bunny cartoon? He said, what made Elmer Fudd the maddest at Bugs Bunny? It wasn't when he hit him. It wasn't when they shot at each other. It's when he would grab him and kiss him. And I started laughing because this guy got it from a cartoon. The greatest form of revenge is forgiveness.
And it's not really revenge. It's just accepting life as it is. You should never waste 1 minute saying, I'm going to get that person.
Yeah, and this guy made a great comment, too. He said, these were kids. He said, how do I know they haven't changed? Why would I want to get even with them or get back at them and destroy their lives now that they're adults? He said they didn't know what they were doing, and I moved on. And your point is well taken on that. Why would you ever want to get even?
And understand, folks, when you see somebody criticizing someone, it's because they're jealous of them, they're envious, they don't have what that person has. It's just the way it is.
It's the opposite.
They're bragging on them, in other words.
It's the opposite effect. So if you come in contact with someone that's criticizing someone, it doesn't say anything about the person being criticized. It says everything about the person that's doing the criticism.
Why do you think Dale Carnegie early on said never criticize, condemn, or complain? He wasn't thinking about the other person that you're criticizing. He was thinking about what you criticizing was going to be doing to you.
The harm you're doing to yourself.
The harm you're doing to yourself.
Yeah, because
it's far greater than what you're doing to the other person.
You just lifted the shade and showed your true inner being, didn't you?
And that you have a mean spirit.
That you're a mean-spirited person.
Yeah.
This book, Dale Carnegie, you gave it to me 21 years ago. It is more important to me now, 21 years later, than it was when you gave it to me. And this book has been out since the 40s?
30s. He wrote it during the Depression.
In the 30s. 90 years ago, and still today, this could be one of the most important books you could ever have on your shelf.
I tell lawyers when I teach at seminars, the first thing I put up on the PowerPoint is a picture of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and I say this book is not titled properly. It should say How to Be a Better Human Being.
That's what it's all about.
Because that's what it's all about. And I say this is the greatest book on trial advocacy that's ever been written or ever will be, and it doesn't mention the law anywhere in it.
No, it's all about people.
But it tells you not to kick dead dogs.
Yeah, tells you why.
It tells you why.
Tells you what you do.
It tells you not to criticize, condemn, and complain. It tells you to listen. It tells you to start trying to think about and see something from the other person's point of view.
Never go into an argument.
You can never win an argument, ever. And those are the things that are essential if you're going to be a professional practicing law.
We've got a lot of new friends listening to this program now that probably don't know this, but I would say just over the last 21 years that I've been with you, you've literally given away thousands of these books.
I have.
I mean, for a couple of years, we went, anybody that wanted a book, they could write in and you would send them one completely free, postage and everything. And you got everybody this book saying, read it, it'll change your life. But you had a great point about it. You said, Keith, anybody that reads this book probably doesn't need to. The ones that won't read it are the ones that need to read it.
For it.
And I have found that out. I've given the book to several people, and some would bring it back and say, I just don't have time to read it. And I would think, you're the one that needs it. And the people who would call me and go, I love it, I'm reading it the third, the fourth time, I'd go, really, you're already doing this stuff. You don't really need to read it, but you get it.
And they use it as a guide. It's
I think it should be taught personally. I think this book should be taught in elementary, in high school, and in college, over and over and over again. I think everyone should have to go through the course of Dale Carnegie. And most people look at it and say, oh, that's just common sense. I had that comment one time.
Well, it's a wonderful world, Keith.
Yes, my friend, it is.
And my friends out there are starting to understand just how wonderful it is.
Mm-hmm.
They understand how important they are. They're going to, this week, find someone and tell them how important they are, that they have something unique about them that they really admire.
You know, I'm looking so forward to that because I'll guarantee you, we've literally got thousands of people that can look around and say, you know, my friend is very unique, and I've never taken the time to tell them the quality that they possess that is so amazing.
The thing that makes me want to be around them.
Yeah.
The qualities that they have. Tell them. Let them know that you appreciate the fact that they are in this world with you.
And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It
No
can
big
be
deal.
friendliness. It can be loyalty. Mm-hmm. It can be happiness, always greeting with a smile. It can be anything simple that you see that says, I really admire that.
Yeah. So my friends are going to do it this week.
And I'll bet you when they say this.
And when somebody criticizes them, they're going to smile and say, boy, what a compliment.
Hot diggity dog, I'm on my way.
Yep, I'm doing something right.
Yeah. You know, you told me one time when I was getting some criticism, you said, Keith, remember, David could have never been a hero if he didn't have a Goliath to come after him. So the bigger the enemy and the bigger the criticism, that's the better it is for you. That means you're doing something right.
Another thing I tell those young lawyers that when I was teaching in seminars, I say, look, you're never going to get a really, really, really good verdict unless the lawyer on the other side is a really, really good lawyer.
Now that's interesting. Explain that.
If the other lawyer is a really good lawyer, then the jury will understand instinctively that the person has been represented adequately and fully. Therefore, the jury won't have to try to find ways to compensate for that bad lawyer that was representing the other side.
In other words, everything will be on the table.
Right.
They'll know all the facts.
And not just know all the facts. Your instinct, I'm going to give you an example. If you're walking down the street and there's a crowd and someone falls,
mm-hmm.
and 2 or 3 people run over to them, the odds are you'll keep walking.
Really?
Because you have been relieved of that responsibility.
Because help has arrived.
Right.
So now I don't have to.
Right.
I've never thought of that.
Right.
I've never thought of that. The same if there's a car accident on the highway and vehicles stop to assist, you drive on by.
Drive on by.
Because
you're relieved of that responsibility.
Now the burden's not up on me because somebody's there.
And if the other attorney is competent enough to totally represent the defendant, then the jury is relieved of the responsibility of having to try to make excuses for them.
Wow, what a unique perspective. In other words, this guy presented everything possible. He threw everything but the kitchen sink at it, and now I can make the right decision.
That person needs to have a big verdict rendered against them.
Wow. I'd never thought of it that way. I really hadn't.
Well, I probably ought to write a book someday, but I'm too lazy of all the things I've observed over the years.
But that's really back to the judo law that you created. That's the judo part of it. The jury now feels like everything has been put on the table fairly, completely, and now I can make the right decision.
Yeah, and it's your responsibility as a lawyer to see to it that that's done. In other words, if your case is true and just and honorable, you want the jury to hear everything in the universe.
See, that is so amazing. That's typical you. Coming out again and saying, I want to make sure the defense has the very best lawyers they can possibly have so that I can put on my case and get the right amount of money for my client.
That's right. You want it. You want a good lawyer on the other side.
Where any other lawyer would say, boy, I sure hope they don't have a good defense attorney. might be able to win this one. And you're saying just the opposite.
You probably could still win.
Yeah.
But you want to remove that element from the courtroom of it not being a fair fight.
You want it.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing. When I first met you one time, you said, Keith, the only thing I can do is get my clients money. And we got off the air and I was like, isn't that taboo? Are you not supposed to say that? And you said, what else can I do? That's all I can't fix their back. I can't fix their neck. I can't fix their leg. The only thing I can do is get them some money so that they can possibly have a little bit better life.
Another thing I try to teach these young lawyers when I'm in the seminars, I say, don't tiptoe around that jury. They're smarter than you are. They've probably got 500 years of life experiences under their belt. Look at them like human beings and talk to them plain. Don't try to hide anything from them. If you got a dog in your case, tell them, I got a dog in a case and I'm going to have to deal with it. I'm here for money. My client needs some money. That's the only reason we're in here. I try to tiptoe around people that are smart enough to know what's going on.
You were giving me an example of a case one time where the defense attorney came out with all this information and everything, and I was like, oh, Lord, Gary, how did you handle that? And you said, I got up and said, what the hell's that got to do with anything? That don't mean he didn't run over my client.
That's right.
And you just took it right off the table. I mean, because it literally had nothing to do with the fact that the truck driver had ran over your client.
But if any lawyer happens to be listening to this, the one advice I would give you more than anything is you have to trust that jury to have enough sense to know what's going on.
Oh, and they will.
Because they do.
That's right.
And don't tiptoe around. Don't act like they're teacups that you got to... I mean, they're human beings. Talk to them. Deal with them like human beings.
Another great Gary Johnson quote, when in doubt, the truth always works.
It's amazing what the truth will do if you leave it alone and don't mess with it.
Well, here's the truth. Was it Sandy that asked
Sandy Ramsey. Thank you, Sandy, again, if you are listening.
Our challenge?
For the challenge that you gave us for our friends. And Keith, would you repeat it for me?
The challenge is real simple. We're going to find one of our friends, and we're going to tell them what unique talent that they possess that we admire.
And it doesn't have to be a friend.
It can be a stranger, a coworker, whoever.
It can be somebody you're watching work.
Absolutely. Let's see what happens with that this week.
Yeah, and then ask them if they'll pass it on to someone they know.
Indeed. You can catch Gary's television show Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock on WYMT. That's your CBS affiliate. A late-night replay is in Central Kentucky on WKYT, your CBS affiliate. And if you start your week early or end it early, you can catch Gary and me on the Fox affiliate, 6:30 a.m. on Monday and 6:30 a.m. on Friday. Should you need to get in touch with Gary, GaryCJohnson.com is the way to do that. And, my friend, I tell you what, I never thought about the angle of criticism being a compliment. We're going to have fun with this week.
Yes, we are.
On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you so much for taking this time to spend with us. As always, Gary and I look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this very same time.
Thanks for listening to Simply Life with attorney Gary C. Johnson. If you'd like to reach the Gary C. Johnson Law Firm, you can call 1-800-337-4002. Until next week, may you be safe, healthy, and happy. And most of all, remember that you're unique and a gift from God. If you'd like to receive a podcast of this week's show or any future show, go to GaryCJohnson.com and sign up today. Thanks for listening to Simply Life.